Hello, my name is Afghana Schrader.
I'm Haley.
My name is Han.
Hi, my name is Paige Trevelyan.
And this is our project, Effect of Viscosity and Temperature on Diffusion through Different Liquids. Diffusion is the movement of molecules of a solute from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration in a solvent. This is done through Brownian motion, which is the random movement of molecules within a system. Diffusion is measured through a diffusion coefficient. The higher the diffusion coefficient, the faster the rate of the diffusion, which means the solute diffuses through the solvent faster. One way to figure out the diffusion coefficient of a liquid is to use the Stokes-Einstein equation. To test this equation using a consistent solute, we can vary the independent variables, viscosity, the liquid's resistance to flow, and temperature, to see if the results match our hypothesis from the equation.
So for our hypothesis, as viscosity increases, the fluid creates more drag on diffusing particles, restricting their Brownian motion and lowering the diffusion coefficient. So based on the Stokes-Einstein relationship, diffusivity is inversely proportional to viscosity. So thicker fluids should show the slowest dye spreading. And in lowest viscosity liquids, drag is smaller, allowing molecules to move farther and more frequently. So this raises the diffusion coefficient and causes the dye to expand more quickly. And lowering temperature reduces molecular kinetic energy, slowing molecular motion and collisions. So as a result, diffusion decreases, so cold water should show a slower increase in dye radius. And higher temperature increases kinetic energy, strengthening Brownian motion and collision frequency, which raises the diffusion coefficient and speeds up the dye spreading. So overall, diffusion should be the slowest in high viscosity and low temperature conditions, and fastest in low viscosity and high temperature conditions, which we expect to observe in our experiment. For our setup, we kept everything simple and consistent. We used food dye, a pipette, identical clear cups, and a stopwatch. So any differences in diffusion came from the liquid itself, not the setup. And the experiment had two parts. First, testing the different viscosities at the same temperature, and second, testing different temperatures using the same liquid to keep viscosity constant. For viscosity, we used a range from water to heavy cream mixtures, all at room temperature. And for temperature, we used only water at fridge temp, room temp, and hot water to isolate temperature as the only variable. So each cup was filled to the same height, and we added exactly 500 microliters of dye to the center. We recorded every trial with a stopwatch so we could clearly see how diffusion changed across conditions. For our experimental process, we lined up the 5 liquids for the viscosity test and used 3 temperatures of water for the temperature test, all in identical cups filled to the same level. We added 500 microliters of dye to the center of each cup using a pipette to keep the starting conditions consistent. After adding the dye, we let diffusion happen naturally and capture snapshots and video to track how fast the dye spread. Comparing the footage across conditions allowed us to see which liquids or temperatures led to faster or slower diffusions.
This is a short video of the viscosity test, where you can see that thicker liquids have a harder time spreading the dye. This is a short video of the temperature test, where you can see the warmer the liquid, the quicker the diffusion.
Looking at the different temperatures, we can see that the lowest temperature has the slowest diffusion rate or the least amount of diffusion. And this is visibly shown through the food coloring or the food dye that is sinking towards the bottom of the cup instead of diffusing with the liquid or throughout the liquid in the cup at the 1 second timestamp. On the other hand, the hot water visibly shows that the food dye diffuses or almost fully diffuses with the liquid in the cup. This confirms our hypothesis that a higher absolute temperature would lead towards a higher or faster diffusion rate. Looking at the different viscosities, we can see that our lowest viscosity liquid, which is our water, fully diffuses within 5 seconds. This shows that it has the highest or fastest diffusion rate. On the other hand, our highest viscosity liquid, which is our heavy whipping cream, shows close to no diffusion, and it also shows no sign of the food dye sinking towards the bottom of the cup. This confirms our hypothesis that the lower the viscosity of the liquid, the higher the diffusion rate.
So what are the real-world impacts of these experiments? Well, our viscosity trials mimic situations where industry needs to blend fluids of different thicknesses, like syrups or polymer solutions. Engineers must know how slow diffusion becomes as viscosity increases, so they can adjust mixing speeds, reactor designs, or processing times. The temperature trials relate directly to processes where fluids are heated or cooled. So as we saw in the experiment, warmer fluids diffuse faster. In real systems, this can help engineers predict how quickly additives, dyes, or reactants will disperse at different process temperatures. The viscosity gradient created by the water, milk, cream mixtures is directly relevant to food and dairy processing. As fat content increases, viscosity rises and slows down diffusion and mixing. And then these same principles are also used for products like lotions, dressings, and cosmetic creams. Differences in diffusion across varying viscosities and temperatures reflect how chemicals distribute in reactors or pipelines as well. High viscosity or low temperature environments slow molecular movement, which can limit mixing efficiency, reduce reaction rates, or lead to uneven product distribution in industrial systems.
Thank you for watching!